Welcome back. Now, promising results are emerging from trials of a new COVID-19 vaccine candidate. The trials are being conducted at the Walter Sisulu and Northwest universities. The institutions say they will provide further results over the next few weeks. But let's discuss these initial findings with the vaccine's developer, Markus Depfenhart, who joins us now from Hamburg. Thank you very much, Professor, for your time. Now, first of all, tell us more about this new candidate of vaccine. I believe it's a DNA type.
Yes, good morning. Thank you very much for having me here today. I really appreciate that. So yes, it's a DNA vaccine. That means it's also a nucleotide vaccine, similar to the RNA vaccines, but is much better suited in a situation like in Africa because of the requirements for cold chain, for example. So DNA vaccines are very thermostable. They are cheap to produce and they can be adjusted very quickly.
So you mentioned in the press release from the Walter Sisulu University and the Northwest University that you've seen very promising results from preclinical trials. What are these promising results? Obviously efficacy?
Yes, look, we have a mice trial going on currently, and of course we draw blood from time to time, and then we look how good the immune response was, and we can say for now, we don't want to say too much now, but we can say the results are really promising according the immune response, according the antibodies that the mice develop against COVID-19.
I also read somewhere that DNA vaccines are basically not expensive and they're very straightforward. Can you explain this?
Yes, look, DNA vaccines or building DNA plasmids is actually a very old technology from biotech. So it can be done everywhere in the world. You just need a bioreactor and then you can produce them in a large amount and they can be amplified very cheap. And they can be also adjusted very quickly, similar to the RNA vaccines, the mRNA vaccines. But as mentioned in advance before, so they have, they have advantages if you look into requirements that you see in Africa or many other countries in the world. So that's in contrast to Europe or to the US, for example. So that's why when we looked into the vaccine, we decided to go on to DNA vaccines because we think they offer those advantages of the nucleotide vaccines, but they also offer other advantages in a more like regional requirements kind of setting.
Prof, have you had any communication with SAPRA, for instance, since this discovery?
Look, we are currently speaking to a lot of people. We are speaking to a lot of authorities. We also try to reach out to your government, of course, in order to get support from there. We are trying to attract funders because, of course, we need funding to push this further. So there are many talks going on. So I'm very happy and grateful that the Walter Sisulu University with the Vice Chancellor, Professor Songa, is driving this so severely, and also the Northwest University. And our picture is actually a bigger scope as just another COVID-19 vaccine. Our picture is that we want to build an expertise in Africa to become independent from Europe, from the US, because one thing is sure, the next pandemic will come. It's just a matter of time. So we want to build up capacities. That means we want to build up development capacities, but we also want to build up manufacturing capacities that fit the local requirements in Africa. And therefore we are forming, or we have formed actually a very nice consortium that will be announced very soon with a lot of universities from all over Africa, all over the continent, but also very famous universities from Europe. And we are continuously onboarding other universities to work together and to really make this happen and to fulfill our vision that is much greater than just this vaccine.
But I guess, Professor, this is also not just about, being a candidate for a vaccine that might help with COVID-19. It's also about putting the African continent on the map, us creating our own vaccines and giving some sort of power to scientists who are studying here in our continent.
Exactly. This is exactly what I meant with that. So this is just an example for, and that's one thing. Look, the good thing is we are doing now something. We don't know how far this goes because COVID might disappear before we already have a final vaccine that fulfills all regulatory requirements and so on. But we are doing something, and we learn every day in that progress. And we see where our gaps are. We see where we have to improve. We see where we have to also have a tech transfer from somewhere. We see where we have gaps according, let's say, simple stuff like analytics. Yeah, we recognize that we have to get all the reagents from Europe and the US or China. And this is also something we have to be able to fulfill the whole value chain, the whole supply chain, in order to be able to do something in Africa, very independent. And there are pandemics coming, but there are also other diseases, rare diseases, or let's say African diseases that are not so interesting for Europe or the US. And I think what we have learned from this pandemic now is that one has to be independent. And when the pandemic started last year, I think it was quite clear from the very first beginning that there will be a shortage of vaccines and that they will be dealt like raw materials, like before maybe gold or whatever. And it's really clear for me, and it was clear from the beginning, that Africa might be at the end of the queue. And that will always happen if we don't do something ourselves, if Africa is not standing up. And now we're standing up, and I can tell you this is a great movement now. And I really think that we make great progress. And this vaccine candidate is the starting point, but we have a much bigger picture. And I'm sure you will hear quite soon a lot of this. And I'm very happy and grateful that I'm part of this journey.
And also, it's also, Professor, about this patency and intellectual property war that, for instance, the president of this country, Cyril Ramaphosa, has been campaigning for in the international world about, considering people's lives instead of patency. So with your vaccine, or the vaccine that you are currently creating with your students, it's not going to be one of those, is it?
No, it's not. And I must say, look, the whole discussion about patents is a good discussion, but one should not forget it's not that guidance how to build a vaccine. Typically, patents are not written that you just can recook a recipe. It's very complex, and it doesn't help you if you don't get the supply of the materials. For the mRNA vaccines, for example, there's also a shortage of those little bricks that you need to build the RNA, to keep it in layman terms. And if you don't get access to that supply chain, if you don't have the infrastructure to build such vaccines, then it doesn't help you. And building European factories or factories from European companies and US companies in Africa also doesn't help you to get independent. And I think it's very important to do something that really can be done in Africa, that fits all requirements, and that will really make Africa strong and independent. And I think we are on a way of a journey. It's a long journey. We won't make it within days or weeks, but we are very much convinced that this really will be a game changer in Africa, all over, not only in South Africa.
Prof, I'm also interested to know if yourself, the two universities, and your students have decided on a name for your vaccine?
No, not yet. Look, we are so busy with so many things because we have that initiative going on that takes a lot of time. We have those trials going on, and but we will find a nice name, I'm sure. Yeah.
All right. Extraordinary Professor Markus Depfenhart, thank you very much for your time.